Greetings everybody, 'tis I, 480 volts. Hope you're all doing okay, hope nobody got sick from the COVID-19 pandemic that is taking the world by storm. Now, it's very frustrating right now. Everything around me is shutting down and it's hard to get anything done. But I'll be darned if that's gonna stop me from making videos. So last year, I made a video about The Legend of Zelda, the very first Legend of Zelda game, and then a little bit later I made a video about Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, which, as you may remember, I said that the Legend of Zelda, the first one, kind of sort of laid the foundation for what the series was and what to expect from it. Zelda 2 kind of drifted into a strange little detour and made some different decisions. Today we're going to be talking about the third Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which saw the creators returning to the standards set by the first game and is considered by many to be one of the better Zelda games out there. Like the other two, this will be the first time I've ever played the game. I'm excited to see what it's about, so let's get going. In 1988, Nintendo began working on a new NES Zelda game. However, 1 year later, the product was brought to the upcoming Super Famicom in Japan and the Super Nintendo in other regions. The game was released for the Super Famicom in Japan of 1991 and for the Super Nintendo in North America and in Europe in 1992. The story is technically considered a prequel to the first Zelda game. At this point, the chronology of the Zelda series becomes very convoluted and hard to follow. Suffice to say that this game takes place in some sort of alternate timeline. The game begins with Link, now a very young boy, receiving a telepathic message from Princess Zelda telling him that she has been kidnapped along with 6 other maidens by an evil wizard known as Aghanim. She tells him that Aghanim has caused the other girls to simply disappear and she doesn't know what happened to them and urges Link to come and find her. News of Zelda's disappearance has spread throughout the land of Hyrule and Link's uncle sets out to find the princess. He tells Link not to leave the house until he returns, but as we all know in video games, when someone tells you not to do something, you must then do the very thing that they have told you not to do. At this point, the only place you can go is Hyrule Castle. Upon entering through a secret passage unnoticed by the guards, Link finds his uncle who has been mortally wounded. His uncle gives him his sword and shield before passing away. You as Link then set out to rescue the princess. Upon doing so, Zelda asks Link to take her to a sacred shrine where she will be safe. Link does so, and Zelda remains with the priest of the shrine who assures Link that he will protect her. Link, on the other hand, is given a more difficult task. It turns out that in ancient times there was a mysterious force known as the Golden Power, which resided in the hidden Golden Land. An evil being cursed the Golden Land and threatened to reign over the land of Hyrule. At the king's command, 7 wise men sealed the Golden Power. The wise men passed their knowledge and powers to their descendants throughout the generations. Zelda and the other missing girls are direct descendants of the wise men and possess the power to control the seal. Aghanim is apparently trying to send them into the now cursed Golden Land to use their powers to break the seal and release the evil being once again. The priest tells Link that he must defeat Aghanim, but to do so he will need the power of the Master Sword. Link meets the village elder Sahasrahla, who informs him of the location of the Master Sword. However, before he can obtain the sword, Link must first collect the 3 pendants of courage, wisdom, and power. You as Link must retrieve the 3 pendants, which are held at the end of 3 different dungeons, each guarded by a boss. During Link's travels, he is inadvertently warped to a mysterious alternate universe known as the Dark World, which is a mirrored version of the land of Hyrule. More on this later. Suffice to say, while in the Dark World, Link is in the form of a defenseless bunny rabbit. However, he does find 2 items, the magic mirror, which allows him to return to the real world, the light world, and the moon pearl, which allows Link to hold his true form while in the dark world. Once you have retrieved the 3 pendants, you can now collect the Master Sword. Upon doing so, Link is contacted telepathically by Zelda, who tells him that she has been found by Aghanim. Link hurries back to the shrine to find the priest mortally wounded, who, before his death, tells Link that Aghanim has taken Zelda back to the Hyrule Castle and will send her, the last descendant of the wise men, to the cursed Golden Land, giving him the necessary means to break the ancient seal. Link enters the castle, battles through the enemies and monsters, and arrives too late to stop Aghanim, who has just sealed Zelda in the Cursed Land. Link then faces off against Aghanim and defeats him. In a desperate move, Aghanim sends Link into the Dark World, presumably unaware that Link possesses both the Moon Pearl, and will thus be able to hold his true form, and the Magic Mirror, and will thus be able to return to the Light World. Link arrives in the Dark World and learns more about what's really going on here. As it turns out, the Dark World is a result of the Golden Land being cursed by the evil being. The Golden Power is in fact the 3 pieces of the Triforce. Legend has it that when a person collects the Triforce, the Golden Land changes form to suit the wishes and desires of that person. Long ago, a thief named Ganondorf stole the Triforce. This caused the Golden Land to morph into the Dark World and changed Ganondorf into the Prince of Darkness,
Ganon himself. It is also believed that Link is the last descendant of an elite order of knights who were charged with protecting the Triforce. Because of this, the burden of responsibility for defeating Ganon and restoring the Golden Land rests on Link alone. To accomplish this, you as Link must rescue the 7 maidens who will use their powers to break the seal to Ganon's tower. The girls are each held in a different dungeon guarded by a boss, and to reach said dungeons you will have to travel back and forth between the 2 worlds. Link rescues the girls, who then open the way to Ganon's tower. Link navigates through the treacherous maze, defeating monsters, and stands before Aghanim a second time, who upon being defeated is revealed to have been possessed by the spirit of Ganon. Link then faces off against Ganon. Once Ganon is defeated, Link takes possession of the Triforce, the Golden Land is restored, and the game ends. I actually like this story. It's not anything amazing, but it works well for the game. Now for the gameplay. As previously stated, this game follows the gameplay style of the first Zelda game. Everything is based on topographical exploration, and there are enemies on screen to be dispatched. We've got an overworld to explore, dungeons to navigate, it's all here. And let me tell you, this game took all that was wrong with the first Zelda game and fixed everything. Let's start with the overworld exploration. Again, the world of Hyrule is very big with lots of places to go and explore. The 2 improvements here are the signposts that tell you which region you're in, which helps a little, and the map. Remember how in the first game our map was this piece of garbage that did a really good job of letting me know that the land of Hyrule was rectangularly shaped? Throw that away and say hello to this game's map. This thing not only shows you the landscape model of Hyrule, it also highlights points of interest for you, like Link's house. When you're charged to go find the 3 pendants and the Master Sword, the map shows you where the locations holding these items are. And when you're trying to find the maidens in the Dark World, it does the same. This is a freaking map! This alone cut down my internet guide consulting by a good 20%. There's also a lot more to do on the overworld than there was before. You've got the standard item shops like in the first game, along with different items and upgrades you can find and collect. There's still some secret areas behind walls you need to bomb, quite a few of them actually, but the bombable walls are often signified by cracks, so you can tell there's something of interest here. The world also is just much more alive than it was before, with small towns where you can interact with people who may tell you information, give you items, or sometimes they serve no purpose at all, they're just fun to talk to. As for the Dark World, the landscape is basically the same, however there are some areas that might have different rock formations or something, and you might find yourself cut off from certain places. To get around this, you'll need to warp back and forth between worlds a lot. It's worthy to note that you can undertake a small side quest that rewards you with the ability to call forth a bird who will take you to certain areas in the light world, making navigation more manageable, but this ability is not available in the dark world. It's also worthy to note that while you can use the magic mirror at any point in the dark world to warp back to that corresponding point in the light world, you cannot use it to get back into the dark world. To get back to the dark world, you'll have to hunt for certain things like warp tiles that are in certain locations. Do know that once you use the mirror to warp back to the light world, a warp field is spawned where you will materialize, and if you step into it, you'll be warped back into the dark world. There will never be more than one warp field though. The next time you use the mirror, a new warp field will spawn at that point and the old one will disappear. Basically, you can get into the light world from any point in the dark world, but can only get back into the dark world from certain points in the light world. I actually really like this system. It forces you to plan ahead a few steps. Now let's talk about dungeon exploration. This is by far my favorite aspect about this game. Like the first Zelda game, we've got mazes to navigate, doors to be unlocked with keys we pick up, treasure to collect, and a boss fight at the end. Each dungeon has 3 specific items to collect. A map, which like the first Zelda game shows you the layout of the dungeon, a compass, which also like the first Zelda game shows you on the map the location of a boss, and a big key. The big key is different from the normal keys, as there are certain doors that will have a big lock that only this big key can open. Typically, these doors are part of the main pathway, so you need to open them in order to progress. Also in each dungeon is a big chest that also requires the big key to open. Typically, these chests contain some sort of permanent upgrade or item for Link's arsenal. As for the normal keys, the dungeon seems to provide you with just enough keys to open all the doors, so you shouldn't ever run out because you wasted one. What makes these dungeons easier to manage is that they seem more linear. Like, they still branch out into several different detours, but the game does a good job of letting you figure out where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do. There is a huge amount of puzzle solving in the dungeons. This is my favorite part. Some of it is very straightforward, such as pushing a block to one side to reveal a hidden door, or stepping on a floor switch to open another door. Sometimes you'll come across a floor switch that won't stay pressed down on its own, and you'll have to push something like a block or gargoyle on top of it to keep it pressed, thus keeping the door open long enough for you to go through. There's one dungeon where you'll encounter one of these floor switches in a room with no heavy objects, and you'll have to backtrack to a higher room with holes in the floor and push a block down one of these holes so it lands next to the floor switch. Sometimes you may come across a cluster of blocks in which pushing the wrong block can box you in, and you'll have to leave the room and re-enter to reset the blocks. I love the puzzles in this game. I've always loved this idea of puzzle solving, and everyone says that this is what the Zelda series is known for, so if the rest of the Zelda games works like these dungeons, then I'm on board. Just on a side note, you can never warp between worlds while in a dungeon. If you use the mirror here, you'll simply be warped back to the very beginning of the dungeon. As for the final dungeon, while it is quite treacherous, it is also still very fun, with lots of intricate puzzles to solve. The problem is that some of these puzzles are in situations where speed is of the essence. For example, you might have to set fire to 4 torches to reveal a hidden doorway, but you have to be quick about it as the floor below you starts to give way, leaving you no place to stand. The final area is challenging, but still very fun. Now let's talk about combat and items. As was the case in Zelda 1, Link starts this adventure with no offensive or defensive means. The only place you can go is Hyrule Castle, where Link's dying uncle gives you his sword and shield. You will encounter other items throughout the game, like the boomerang bombs, bows, and arrows, which all work just like they did in Zelda 1, although the boomerang isn't quite as controllable as it was in Zelda 1, but I would still say it's more useful. The hook shot, which allows you to grapple onto stationary objects and pull yourself toward them, the ice and fire rods, which have elemental magic properties, the magic cape, which turns you invisible at the expense of your magic power, the boots, which allow you to charge directly ahead at high speed with your sword drawn, taking out enemies in your path and sometimes opening up secret passageways, the gloves, which allow you to lift heavy objects, and many more. Many of these items can be upgraded into more potent versions. The only ones that are mandatory upgrades are the Master Sword, which is a story key item, and the bow, which when upgraded changes your arrows into silver arrows, which, like the first Zelda game, are required to beat the final boss with. Thankfully, the game tells you this in advance. As for controls, Link is a little easier to maneuver this time around. However, his slash attack is still very clunky. When you first get your sword, all you can do is slash attack plus the supercharged slash if you hold the button down long enough. However, once you get the Master Sword, your slash will send a beam of energy across the screen, while at full health, just like in Zelda 1. While each sword upgrade also increases the power of your slash attack, the energy beam's power is always the same as the slash attack from the first sword. Still, having a range attack is a huge help. Also, when Link drops a bomb, he now has the option to pick it up and throw it before it explodes. This is only required in solving a few puzzles. Like the first game, our currency system is rupees, of which you can now hold up to 999. Link has a standard health meter from the previous games with hearts, and the magic meter from Zelda 2. As always, the health meter can be increased by finding hearts. You'll always get an extra heart at the end of each dungeon after defeating the boss, and you can find pieces of hearts scattered throughout the overworld. For every 4 pieces of heart you collect, you get an extra heart. There is no way to increase your magic meter, however you can receive an upgrade that halves the amount of magic you use. You can also find armor upgrades to reduce the amount of damage you'll take from enemies. A new item that is introduced are the bottles, which actually work a lot like the sub-tanks from Mega Man X. There are 4 of these bottles total, and you can fill them up with special magic power that you can buy from a special shop. The red powder refills your health, the green powder refills your magic, and the blue powder refills both. Once you've filled a bottle, you can then use it at any time to use the contents. You can also find a bug-catching net that allows you to catch fairies and store them in your bottles to be used at a later time. Most of the enemies you face are fairly easy to deal with. It's worthy to note that Wizrobes return in this game and are much easier to deal with than in Zelda 1. Still, the most annoying obstacles remain the gargoyles that shoot fireballs at you, and a new enemy, the anti-fairy that can only be killed by sprinkling magic powder on, will not only damage your health, but take a little bit of your magic as well. Most of the bosses aren't terribly difficult, but a few of them can be a bit challenging. The final boss isn't too difficult, just make sure you have silver arrows and enough of them. The graphics are nice, the textures are bright and colorful, and everything is full of life. The music was once again composed by Koji Kondo. The music is okay, the main overworld theme from the first game returns here, and the overworld theme of the Dark World is kind of epic. All in all, it's pretty good. The production is solid too. Some elements like timpani drums do sound really dry, but most everything else gives a fair imitation of an orchestra. At the end of the day, this is a very solid game. I suppose the biggest problem I have are the sword controls for Link, which I still feel are kind of clunky. Besides that, I can't really think of anything else wrong with this game. It is a huge improvement over the first 2 Zelda games, and I hope the rest of the series proves to be like this. This is definitely a game I wouldn't mind going back and playing again.
Well, that was The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I really enjoyed it. That was a wonderful game. It turned out better than I thought it would be. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff that I tell you to do. Please stay healthy. Wash your hands. That's the best thing you can do. Believe me. And I will see you all in the next video. Peaces.